To come and bring a dynamic speaker on today. Welcome to the Together We Will Heal forum, which is organized by the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. This conference vision is to educate the African American community about mental health, about substance use disorder, intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as total well-being of African Americans. I really hope that this forum will offer you an opportunity for you to participate in the conversation. This is all what we are about, to have a conversation about the issues that our community is facing. Again, I am so honored to have this conversation with Dr. Miller. A few things, housekeeping rules. One thing we want to make sure is please always mute yourself. There's going to be an opportunity towards the end to ask questions about, and with Dr. Miller, about some of the things that she will bring forth. The other is when you want an opportunity to interact, ensure that there is a reaction, that you raise your hand and then you will be counted too. There are times in this forum that many people or some will become overwhelmed by the conversation. At that time, if you can take a break, allow yourself to take care of yourself, because we want to ensure that even though these topics are some relevant topics, sometimes they're difficult. So again, take care of yourself. This conversation is on incarcerated mental health and women. Powerful conversation that sometimes we have not heard about. And so Dr. Esteria Tatum Miller is a healthcare professional with passion for global health. Currently, she is a chief community engagement and diversity, equity, and inclusion at The Root Cause. The Root Cause is a health ministry founded in the US in 2014 to focus on improving the quality and quantity of life for those that are affected by chronic illness who live in at-risk, underserved communities. Welcome, Dr. Miller, and we appreciate you being here. So let's go ahead and get started in this conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to just ask you, Dr. Miller, tell us a little bit about yourself before we go into the discussion.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this forum, and I'm so happy to have been invited. Thank you to Lady Jane Aqua and Minister Sonia Hosey, and all of you who are here today. Thank you so much for being here. I love to serve. Well, I'll actually tell you, I've changed my career since you received that bio. My right now, I am a counselor for a homeless shelter that houses homeless pregnant teens in Dallas, Texas. And I counsel them. I'm the in-house counselor. I'm also the in-house counselor for women who are at Trinity Restoration Ministries, and they have been released from incarceration. And so I am counseling them as well, counseling and coaching. So that's really where I am right now. My foundation is Chance 490 Foundation. It comes from a scripture, Matthew 18:22, when Peter asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive? And he thought, 7 was a great number. But Christ said 70 times 7. And so sometimes we need a few more chances. And 70 times 7 is limitless. And so that's my tagline: forgiveness without limits. And so that's where I am right now.
During this conversation, I'm going to do a disclaimer. When you are a faith provider, this is around or targeted around faith and mental health. So as we begin to have this conversation, you must understand that we are talking from a faith-based mental health, incarceration, and women. And so I'm going to do that disclaimer because Dr. Miller may reference that. And so I just want you to ensure that that's the direction that we're going, okay? And so, Dr. Miller, talk a little bit about your incarceration. Talked a little bit about your lived experience. Try to paint the picture so people can understand a little bit about how that journey occurred.
Thank you so much. The scripture says in Revelation that we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So this is truly a testimony of faith that tested me in every different way. I'm a mother of 3, divorced twice because of domestic violence. And God afforded me the opportunity to go to college, and I completed my bachelor's and my master's degree in business administration. And also I achieved my doctorate in biblical counseling and biblical studies. So I was working and doing a lot of great things in a community that really was underserved for, and they had a prevalence of diabetes. The A1C was 13, 14. So blood sugars on average were around 400 to 600. And so many of these people were coming into the emergency room. Well, we decided, Baylor, Scott, and White, to put a health component in the community. And so I was so excited about it because I grew up in that community. So it was so exciting to come back to that community and serve. I did a lot of work working with technology to build it around the way people lived, and it was comfortable for them to come to us. And so I started a community health worker program and working with churches. And so these were our ambassadors in the community for the opportunities that we had for healthcare. But anyway, as I continued on, I gained a lot of notoriety because of the research that I've been doing in the community with diabetes, with breast cancer, and communities that were just really underserved. And so this afforded me the opportunity to go to the White House. And so I was on the ground floor of working with Obamacare, along with 99 others. I was named one of the 100 most influential health leaders in America in 2012 by the Obama administration. And so at that time, I had a lot of great things going on, but behind the scenes, there were things going on at home in my personal life. At the time, my goddaughter, who I loved so much and had taken to college, her father died just before she graduated high school. So I took her on and took her to college. A couple of years later, she passed away unexpectedly. At that same time, my ex was suing me. And so I was having problems with that. I was working to keep my children in private schools and college, as well as secondary school. And then I had my parents. My parents, I loved them so much, but both had diabetes, and sometimes both would be in the hospital. So there was a lot of stress going on, but I was still trying to maintain that things were okay. So I started to kind of mingle. I started going to some of my faith organizations and activities less. And so I got into something my mother told me never to do, which was drink alcohol. And a lot of the places that I was going to speak, that's what they had. And so I started out with just one glass, and then somebody said, okay, well, you can have another one. It took me fast. It took me fast with all of that going on. And then I was elevated to actually start to work in DC with the Foundation for Obamacare. I was overwhelmed with good things as well as negative things, but I did not know how to go and balance. That's what I didn't know how to do, was to balance, and didn't even know it that I needed it. But one day, now that I know what my calendar was, at the time I didn't remember where I was going. But one day, unfortunately, I drank, I drove, and I killed someone. And I was devastated about this because I had been in healthcare over 20 some odd years, wanting to help people. And I hurt somebody. I mean, I killed somebody. And it took me a long time to say that. And so I have to say exactly what happened. I actually killed someone. And so that led me to incarceration. I received 7 years. I did all 7 years. I do not complain about it because there is no value you can put on a life. But God afforded me the opportunity to use that time to turn around and turn my life around in such a way that it was not only helping people with health, but it was also helping people with mental illness. And so that's where I found myself in a prison about a year after I was in the White House. So I went to the big house, and that was in Texas, at Gatesville, Texas, at the Hilltop unit. And like I said, I was given 7 years for that tragedy, unfortunately.
A lot of us, a lot of us talk about restorative justice.
Yes.
Did you ever have an opportunity to speak with the family?
Unfortunately, because of the laws, I could not speak with the family. My daughter, bless her heart, she was young, but she was, in her early 20s. She had just graduated Hampton University. She found the family, and she was actually near them. And, she conveyed her condolences. I also wrote a letter. And I asked my attorney to give it to them. They did receive it. I don't know that they ever forgave me, but I did ask for forgiveness. And I also not only said that I would dedicate my life to the life that was taken and give back to the community so that this wouldn't happen to anyone else that had the same issues. I wasn't aware that I had a mental health problem. I knew it was in my family, but not me. Definitely not me. I just, not me. I was too educated. I was, making 6 figures. I was, I knew a lot of people. And I woke up from that tragedy with my hands cuffed to a bed and a police officer next to me. And for the next 7 years, everything was stripped completely away. Everything, my home, my cars, my bank account, my children were separated from me. My parents were separated from me. And I had to take that time to get quiet and understand what brought me to that point, and then decide that I was going to work toward helping someone else. Because since I was here, which I did not understand, still don't understand,
Right.
God allowed me to stay. Why not me? Why didn't it happen to me? But it didn't. And so since I'm still here, I have to do what I can to help the next person.
Powerful. How did the prison address mental health there? Was there any types of services or anything in prison?
Well, there were some services. But I'll tell you, most of the women that I came in contact with, many of them, if they had if it had been addressed, their mental health prior to, I don't believe they even would have been in there. And then you have those repeat people who come in. Yes, they say there's mental health, but what they do is just give you a bunch of pills. And oftentimes, depending on, the length of the sentence, most of the women would take advantage of those pills and even share. And that was not allowed, but they did that. Some, like one right now, I call her one of my spiritual daughters. She's still incarcerated because of human trafficking. And she was a victim, but she was also lured into attracting other young women to do what she had been doing. And so she got caught up into that, and actually was incarcerated because of the human trafficking ring she was involved in. But she right now needs anxiety medication. She gets so she can't even make her doctor's appointments because she's too afraid to get into a van, enclosed space. She's become claustrophobic. And when you are there, you are in very tight, small spaces. And so when we would travel, we would be in vans that did not have windows. Sometimes they didn't have fresh air. Oftentimes they didn't have fresh air. So they say they are addressing it here in Texas. They have counselors. It depends on which unit you're at, and also how many people are on the caseload. Because sometimes they won't even take you on the caseload if they think, quote unquote, you're faking, having an issue. So you have to get around that as well, because some people do, unfortunately, make it bad for the ones who really do need help. But they say it's there. But the way they do it, it's indignant. It's it just makes you feel uncomfortable. Oftentimes the medications can be too strong, and so you're walking around like a zombie. But there's more that could be done. Unfortunately, they don't like to spend a lot of money on good treatment in mental health facilities within the prison system. It's unfortunate, but like you said in your disclaimer, I know, there are others who may not believe the way I do, but my faith is what kept me all 7 years, because I was the sole breadwinner for my children. And I had to leave them, but I had taught them well. And when I came home, Mother's Day weekend of 2020, we were reunited. And I was so, so happy because during that 7 years is when I achieved my doctorate. I received that, did my practicum and all of that with the ladies who were incarcerated at that particular time. I had access to young offenders, ages 14 to 17, and because I worked in the chapel, but also women who were sex offenders. Before prison, I did not know that women were sex offenders, and they were. But there are a lot of people who have issues, and so I was able to talk to some of them as well. But I will say, it doesn't stop there. Once you come out of incarceration, you still have to deal with life. And case in point, in my situation, my son caught COVID at college. He was graduating that year. 2020 was his senior year, and he was scheduled to graduate in May of 2021. Unfortunately, he caught COVID. He had asthma, and 7 months later, I buried my son. And it was difficult. One of the most difficult things I've ever experienced. But I was able to endure. With my faith, I was able to be peaceful and understand that life will still continue on for me, although my son is gone. And I love my son. And he knew that. We spent a lot of time together. But it was his time to go. And it still wasn't my time. But I also do my work in memory of my son, Chris. My son he had mental health issues as well. He had ADD and he was dyslexic. But my son did not use medication like I do. I will express that, yes, I do have medication. But he chose not to. And he functioned well. But life continues on, Minister Hosey, for people who are incarcerated and come out. They still have to be prepared, because once you come out of incarceration, it's like you're in this structured environment, and then when you get out, the party is there and everybody's happy about you coming home, and then a few days later you just kind of fall off because you're not used to that structure. You are just not told what to do, when to do, how to do it. And some people need that. And I was able to function and continue to thrive, actually, because of my faith and because of what I said I was going to do. I was going to help the next person. And there's so many young women coming into incarceration, many of them leaving their children, many of them taking charges for young men that they know in their lives. They shouldn't even really be there, but they think that, oh, I have to do this for him. And that's all in the thinking, about how to function in life. They can't function, they don't think, without a mate, whether it's a man or whether it's a woman. They just can't function because many of them pair up after they get incarcerated. And that can be a whole nother issue, even with that, because we get moved around when you're incarcerated. You never know when you're going to be moved. You never know when you have to go to the hospital, when you're going. You go in dead middle of the night. You wake up and somebody's gone. You may not know where they've been gone, where they're going. You may not know if they're coming back. So you make these connections and you think they are for a lifetime, which many of these young women do. On my unit, we had 18 to 20, well, to 33. That was the biggest number of women in that particular population. And it was tough. It was tough watching these young women. Some of them went to the mental hospital for incarcerated women. And I tell you, that is a whole nother situation when you go there. They're stripped. They're made to be in the cold, and eventually they get a blanket. They're checked to see if they're faking. It's a while before they can have contact with their family, if they have contact at all. If you don't have a certain amount of money, you can't, use the phone. You don't write letters if you don't have, the resources to do that. But it's tough for women, and women are going into incarceration at a higher rate, and they are staying longer. And
Wow.
see, the myth is that women go in and, they'll get out. But women change. Many women change while they are incarcerated. It's a very scary situation. And if your mental state is not strong enough, you'll begin to believe the lie. And the lie is that you're just a number. The lie is that you are less than a cat. We have many cats on the unit. They get fed a whole lot better than many of the women who were incarcerated with me. And fortunately, I had a family who supported me. My children were working, and so they would send me funds. And so I was able to afford a commissary. But many women aren't, they just are not. And so I'm just, I still keep in touch with the women. As a matter of fact, I have several who I counsel. They contact me when they get out. I actually had another lady who just contacted me yesterday. I have to call her back. She's in Houston. And I've had women who are in the Valley, women who are in West Texas, East Texas, South Texas. So I keep up with these women, and my foundation helps where I can with resources. So God has afforded me the opportunity to be a blessing to them. And that helps me to continue on until it's my time to leave.
Right. How are you connected to these ladies? How are you connected to them?
I'm connected to them when I go into the prisons and I do prison ministry. I have a couple of ministries that I go in, and I talk my lived experience to the ladies. I also go to a program at the courts in Dallas County. There is a substance use a court for women, and I say it's about 120 of them who are in that program. And I go and I talk to them and coach them, and just tell my story. And many of them have gotten on the right path. I am also the board president of a organization, the Wayback House, and it's for women and men who are coming out of incarceration, and they have resources for them to get started with classes and so on, with getting ready for work. And so I serve on a couple of different boards that help with reentry. So I stay connected in those spaces, reentry, going into the prisons to speak, and not only at the church services, but also at empowerment classes that they may have just for women, talking about mental health and the role that it plays in our communities, especially those communities of color, because oftentimes I found, because I know in my situation, the church that I was at did not they didn't respond the way I would have expected them to respond once they found out that I had the problem that I had. And so I also want to say this for those who are working in ministry, churches or safe harbor places, that it's real. You know, just because someone says that they pray or someone says that they, have faith, they also need someone else to help walk them through this valley. There are certain questions that you can ask to find out if there are women or even people who are contemplating suicide or just depression. Because even when I was incarcerated, there was one of the young women who I had mentored in a Bible class. She hung herself. She was 19 years old. She hung herself and she died. And because of the rules, they were not able to go in as quickly to resuscitate her. And so she died at the age of 19. And she was put in a potter's field. No one from the family would take her body and bury her. There was also another woman who died. This was her third time coming in, and she had a mental health issue, and she wanted help, but she didn't know how to ask for it. She was so she was just so aggressive. Many of the officers just did not like her. But for some reason, because I showed her how much I cared, she came to me, she talked to me. And 4 days later, she was dead. So people are dying in there. And it's not just because of, they're fighting or doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Yes, we messed up. Yes, we should be, chastised for what we've done, and we should follow the laws. But there should also be redemption and restorative measures for people to come back into society and be able to work and thrive as good citizens. But that's not happening. Fortunately, I was very fortunate. The Lord allowed me to come right out, and I had a job that I didn't even know I had. And that was with the root cause. Many of my colleagues and peers who are there are still struggling, still needing just the basic needs. I have one in Houston right now. I'm trying to help her find a job. She's 70 years old. She doesn't have a pension. She's getting barely $300 a month. Who can live off that? Her family member just died. So she's trying to find just work, any kind of work. Everywhere she goes to apply, they say no. So what does that make you do? Go back to what you used to do. I mean, that's just, they go back to what they know. If they can't get into where, everything's on TV and in the bright lights is saying you have a second chance. She's been turned down so many times. And once she was given a job, but they told her when her background came back, no, this is something she told them. She told them what she did, murder. But she's come back. She's paid her dues. Now it's time to allow us to do some work. Give us what we need, to just function. I mean, she's on her own and just begging for work, something to do. So this is where a lot of the women find themselves, either looking for someone to take care of them, somebody
Mhm.
who's not healthy, a healthy relationship, or they're just going back to what they know: prostitution, selling drugs, getting into all kinds of illegal activities that is just the get rich quick scams.
Mhm. Mhm. You've said so much, Dr. Miller, that I can't even figure out to even say.
Yes, yes, yes,
Because you talked a lot about the
yes,
reentry and all of that and how difficult it is.
yes,
And I hope that someone in the judicial system hears
yes,
this story,
yes,
because this is the reality.
yes, it
This is the
is.
true reality, more so than not.
Yes, yes,
And like
yes,
you said, most have paid their dues.
yes.
They've done it. Yes, we can't condone
No,
what they may have done,
no, no,
but
no.
the second chance is so important.
It's so important.
Yes,
It's a
the
matter
second
of life
chance.
and death. It's a matter of life and death. It really is. I mean, your mental health, that's life when you can
Yes.
feel like you're giving to a society and you're being welcomed back into the community. But
Mhm.
oftentimes you only get welcomed back into that community that's unhealthy, and that's not
Yes.
good. But we all want to be a part of something. I believe that's how we were
Right.
designed. We all want to be a part of something. And
Yes.
unfortunately, many don't have the choices or believe that they have the choices.
Right. Right. Right.
I just think
Well.
that moving forward, if you can do
Mhm.
anything, a call to action would
Mhm.
be to contact
Mhm.
your senator or your congressperson and talk to them about the fees that that uh, uh, families have to pay just to have a phone call or a visit. Um, Talk to them about the conditions
Mhm.
that some of these prisons are in. They've been there,
Yes.
the unit I was in, been there since the 1800s, and asbestos was found. There's
Mhm.
no air conditioning. And in Texas, it can get well up to 100 and, 10 degrees outside. So inside, it's almost 125. I had a third-degree burn. I'll just be that transparent and just tell you, I had a third-degree burn from the heat. I've never experienced that type of heat in my life. And I had to be helped with
Mhm.
how to manage that by another offender who understood, because that was not significant enough to go to the doctor and go to the infirmary with, and then have to pay $100. And
Mhm.
people don't understand that you do have to have there's a copay, $100 copay in
Mhm.
prison for you to go to the doctor and go to the dentist. It's a lot.
Yes. Yes. Before we go into the questions, what resources are available for individuals that are now um, transitioning back? Not only the resources, let me just say, for those that are transitioning back to the community, what
Well,
resources are there?
Well, I will tell you that's one reason why I am on the executive board of Miles of Freedom. Richard Miles was wrongfully incarcerated here in Dallas, and he was exonerated after 15 years that he did not commit the murder and crime. So he's taken funds from the monies that he received from the state to start a nonprofit, and they provide resources for you when you come out, and you have to just say, I want help. you do that,
Mhm.
there's a whole case management workflow that you can go through and get a job. Also, I'm the board president. I was just recently elected the board president of the Wayback. The Wayback is also, but it's a ministry as well as a nonprofit that helps people who are coming out of incarceration, but they start with the person 6 months prior to their release, talking
Mhm.
to them, giving them, ministering to them, helping them to feel comfortable with the people who are coming into the prison. And then they can transition to the homes that are set up for this population. And they continue on
Mhm.
with case management, working towards a job. Now,
Mhm.
does everyone thrive? No, everyone doesn't thrive. But the majority, I will say, do. We've had just a few at the Wayback, I think, that did not, or we're still working with, because
Mhm.
we're keeping metrics and keeping follow up on all of them. And the same thing with Miles of Freedom. So there are networks that and nonprofits that are there and able to help when they come out of
Mhm.
for release. And that's just here in Texas. I know
Mhm.
there are some who are in other states that I have had a chance to collaborate with, but for the most part, um, the system should get you ready. You should walk
Mhm.
out with a information that's up to date, where you can go and get these resources. They won't
Mhm.
be handed to you like
Right.
everything's handed to you while you're incarcerated.
Right.
You have to go get it. But if you have a fear, or if you have anxiety, or if you're depressed and you don't have anywhere else to go, that piece of paper is not going to mean anything to you. You need
Mhm.
someone to help you walk alongside until you can thrive.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I'm doing with the few that I can do, because I can't do this work by myself. I have
Right.
applied for some grants so that
Right.
I can get with other ladies who have lived experience and who are specifically suited for this type of work.
Mhm. Wow, you said a lot. We're going to open up the floor now for questions and answers. And Lady Jane, can you kind of help me kind of see the hands? Um, because I'm not seeing the hands here. Oh, let me see. See if I can see any questions. There's been a whole lot of comments. Oh my
Well, praise the
goodness.
Lord. I'm just
Yeah,
so
there's one
thankful.
comment. Can you kind of see some of the comments? There's this one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's
Because yes, we truly agree that we thank you so much, Dr. Miller, for your transparency and the truth. Um, because there's so much that we must do
yes,
in order for in jails and in prisons
yes.
that addresses mental health. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. I see someone has said it was an honor to hear your story. I too have lived experience. I served 5 years in TDCJ. I was released in 2019. I now work for Austin Community College as a reentry specialist for our
mhm,
students in our trade class. Praise God. In a women's
mhm,
prison at Lockhart, Texas. I would love to connect. Oh, this is wonderful to hear. Oh, this is wonderful to hear. I am going to get the ones who've left their information for me to contact them, and I'm so excited about someone else out there actually getting the work done. This is truly, truly a blessing.
mhm,
Um, there's another one, Diane Banks. She's received her doctorate as well. Oh,
Oh
how
my.
wonderful. This is so exciting to hear and to see. I'm going to definitely
Right.
be contacting these people to follow up. And I'm thankful that Sabrina, she said this was
Yes.
liberating for her. And
Yes.
the truth has a way of doing that. Transparency has a way of doing that too. It just helps, to know that someone else has been there and that it's okay to talk
Mm,
about it. And, I'm not going to say that I go to every place that I go, I have an opportunity to speak, that I speak about everything, but
mhm.
I have discernment when I need to go a little deeper. And
Yes.
so I actually had decided, once I accepted what I had done, and I tell you that acceptance, it was tough. But once I accepted what I had done and how powerful many of the ladies thought my story was, they started changing. They
Mm,
started coming to me and asking questions. Some of them would call me mama,
mm,
because oftentimes many of them didn't know who their mothers were. Um, and that's tough. But my
mhm,
children needed someone, and I had the opportunity to help somebody else's children.
mhm,
And that's a blessing.
mhm,
I felt so good doing
mhm.
that because I knew my children had mothers, a village of mothers and fathers who were helping them along when they didn't have access to me.
Mhm. Now, there's a question about how did you move forward having a felony conviction? And I believe you stated that when you came out of prison that there was already a job for you. But how did you deal with the shame? How did you deal with the
Oh,
shame?
I had to deal with the shame inside.
Mm,
Inside prison. I had to deal with that. Now, I
yeah.
will say I had some trepidation coming out. I was nervous about, how was, how was I going to be accepted?
Right.
What did I look like? Um, were my children, well, I knew my children loved me. They continued to tell me how much they loved me, and they would always see me. Now, I will say my other family members, my siblings, I didn't see. They did not
Mm,
visit me. I had one who came just before I was released, but those
mhm,
7 years, I didn't have any visitors. So I had to understand that this was a walk that I was going to either get up and do it and
mhm,
make sure that I could be the example that I wanted to be, or I was just going to fail and fail
mhm.
miserably. And I just didn't think that was an option, especially since I made it through the 7 years. So
Right.
I just said I had to come out, and I said what I did, and I continue to say what I did. I'm
Mhm,
not proud of it, but I will say I have seen the fruit of what I have called my most tragic, worst experience of my life. I've seen some beautiful fruit come out of the young ladies who were previously incarcerated with me, and are getting out even now, because, and it's not me, it's just the spirit of giving, passing on to them that you can do it too. I'm no different
right.
than you are. You can do it too. And I owe that to you. I owe that to you to look back and say, yes, you can do it too. And I even with my children, when they were young, I taught them to give back to the community. My daughter is a nurse, and she has always wanted to be in communities of need, and be there to help it wasn't about her being so successful and breaking records or finding a cure, but it was just the care and comfort. And that's what I taught them. And my daughter was living, near people who were having trouble with substance use. And I started to say, well, why are you doing this? And why are you? And I thought about it and I said, you know what? I taught you to do this. I taught you to love. I taught you to care and be concerned. When she moved, they all just came and said bye. And they told me bye, mama. And she just, loved them right where they were. Even though, what they're doing is hurting them. And some of them are being killed with it. But she's loving them right where they are. And that's what I am doing. I want to love them right where they are. And that's how I came out in answer to that question. How I was able to move forward. It's love. I was loved enough to spare my life. So I have to spread that love. And that's just my whole premise about forgiveness without limits. Love without limits goes with that.
And you talked a lot, and I think some of the basic things that we just need to be aware of, regardless of where we are in this life, regardless of what position or anything that we have. But as people, as a community, that regardless of what someone has done, there is still another chance. Even if we can just look at ourselves and know that we have been given a chance. One of the other questions is, can you speak to your experience about having someone walk beside you and how it impacted your life? Walking right beside you. That's what we all need, somebody to walk beside us.
Oh man, I had such, speaking of that, walking alongside you, when you're working and you make friendships and you have colleagues that are just colleagues and some who are just, you think are friends as well. When you're in a situation like what I was in, you really truly find out who are the friends that will walk alongside you. I will say Dr. Francois Booker Drew, a teacher. She was a teacher at my children's elementary school. She was a director, and she's been a vice president. No matter what level or what career she's opportunity she's moving toward, she always had time for me. She wrote me a lot. That was my friend. She's still my friend. She's still my friend. Dr. Terry Flowers, good friend. He was my children's principal. They walked alongside, and how they were able to do it on the outside of my incarceration. They wrote me letters. I had a mentee. Her name is Joy. Joy would send me a card, and it would just say, "Keep on singing." So this is how they walked alongside me. And I know what it did for me. So that's what I do with the other young ladies. Also using the experience that I had and knowing, the challenges that they face. I'm still able to do that even while they're incarcerated. I send them letters. I send cards. Like I said, I'm able to, on some units, go in and give my testimony or be a part of a forum. All of those things, those little touches, it makes such a huge difference. So that's how I was able to make it. I had those who walked alongside me.
Awesome. There's several more questions.
So
Then
yeah,
just
I'm so
go ahead.
sorry. Pat Jackson's hand has been up for a long time. Miss Pat.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
hi,
Go ahead. Go ahead and ask
Hello.
verbally. Yes, I'm
hi,
so
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am. Hello, Dr. Miller. Thank y'all for having me.
hi.
I just wanted to ask, I get to serve as the leader for our criminal justice ministry at my church. And we
Yes.
do a lot of different things, pen pal, angel tree, legislation.
Oh, wonderful.
But my question is, in dealing with people returning, Dr. Miller, we get
Yes.
into a place where it's hard to get them to open up to us so we can help. Can you,
Yes.
especially those that could be possibly experiencing mental illness that we may or may not know?
Right.
Our church is very open for that. We have a very good ministry, but how can you tell me one or two or three steps that a church can take in that ministry area to help returning citizens?
I would say if you could partner with whatever individual who is coming out, try to, I don't know if you have prior access to them as far as, writing letters or going in and doing programs at a specific unit or whatever, but it's easiest if you start as early as possible, talking to them, allowing them to talk to you about some of the things that they've been doing while they were incarcerated, some of the things that, where they will be, if they'll need a space or if they need somewhere to live. And it's always easiest if you have someone who has been through the experience. I don't know if you have people on who are volunteering or who are working with your church who have been previously incarcerated. Usually they open up when they've understood that, okay, you've been in there, you know what I've dealt with, and you understand it. So most of the time, it's because they don't feel safe or feel comfortable. So it's in my experience, it's just been best when you have someone who's a peer, someone who's a peer who understands where they've been. And I would say women should be with women and men should be with men. And it's not a sexist thing or whatever, but oftentimes you just find that women who've been incarcerated, they don't have the same treatment that men have. Men sometimes go through even more traumatic things than women do. Not that women don't, because there are some things that, are indignant that they experience. But I will just say the experience in prison for men typically is a lot different than women. So I would say peer to peer is your best solution for your workflow. You have someone who partners with them. And I don't know
Jeffrey,
if you have access to that. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, Garfrey asked the question, the injustice of our system seems to so overwhelming. You mentioned contacting lawmakers. Is there another action item that you would advise?
I would also advise, there is a law that here in Texas, and I don't know if everyone is here in Texas, but the Richard Miles law, it needs to be, it's been presented. We need you to speak to that he was incarcerated without having, there was some information that had not been released to his attorney prior to his trial. and conviction. And so that Richard Miles law, you can look that up and see the law on milesofreedom.org. There's also some other things that are listed on that website that relate to some of the judicial things that we could do. Also, there is a law that's been on the books, and it about youth offenders. They're putting them, some have been incarcerated and given life sentences. Many of them were abused and had issues prior to. You could look that law up. It's called the Second Look, I believe, Second Look law. Many of those children who did not have a violent crime and did not participate may have been there, because I know of one whose mother did it, and the child was there at 16, but she got 60 years. Her mother got life. So there are situations that happen in the judicial system with young people, and for people who are typically of color, and they're not, the process is not fair. And so I would say go to the milesoffreedom.org. There is a page that talks about some of the laws that can be affected and some of the things that you could do as a citizen who's able to vote. I will say you need to vote too. No matter how you vote, please get out there and vote if you're eligible, because if you're on parole, they won't allow you to vote. If you're off parole, yes, you can vote.
I think this is the last questions, and there has been a whole lot of positive comments. But the last one, I hope I've captured everyone's, but the last question is, are you a part of AA in any form?
AA, I have, that is actually the program that I used and started using in Dallas County when I was incarcerated. I had heard it was a cult, and that was before I had an issue, with alcoholism. I didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I mean, because I didn't drink every day. But that program afforded me the opportunity to look deep inside and understand truly the definition of a person who is an alcoholic. And I apologize. My dog is a little Yorkie, and she just woke up. She has nightmares sometimes, so I apologize for that interruption. But I forgot what I was saying. I'm sorry. I forgot what I was saying. What were we talking about?
We were talking
It was
about
about
AA.
AA.
Oh,
You were talking
AA.
about AA.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
AA is a great program. And I also, AA is where I first said what I did. And it took me 3 years to do that. But AA gave me the space and the opportunity to say it and just get it out there in the atmosphere that this is something that I did. I can't make up for that, but I can move forward differently and in a more healthy way. So AA was a very, very good program. Thank you for asking that.
If I did not, we are supposed to end at 2:30. But if there are at least one person who did not have an opportunity to ask a question, can you ask the question quickly because I want to ensure that everyone has an opportunity. Okay. It seems as though that there are no additional questions. I just want to say, Dr. Miller, thank you so much for this
Thank you.
conversation. And I am so glad that we were connected. I am so glad that we was connected because I believe that Francois
Yes, yes, Dr.
um,
Francois.
connected us for a
Yes,
certain
she
reason and
did.
for a certain purpose. And I am so glad of having that kind of connection. And since we are at the end, I want you just to remind everyone that every third Wednesday of the month at 1:30, there will be a forum, conversations such as this. And so I want you to keep looking out for our Together We Will Heal forums the third Wednesday at 1:30. Also, we invite you to our Facebook group. That's the Central Texas African American Support Group. There's a Facebook page for that. As Lady Jane mentioned at the very beginning, is that we're having our 23rd Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. It will be hybrid. So therefore, you can either attend in person or you can attend on site. And so I thank you. I'm going to say thank you in advance for registering to this phenomenal conference that will be coming up. During this conference, and you can go on www.ctaafsc.com, .org. And Lady Jane put that in the chat, and there's several ways to participate. There's going to be a host of workshops. We're going to nominate community members to be recognized for an award. There's going to be exhibitors. There's going to be sponsors. So again, head to our conference website. Then again, until next month, I just say thank you so much for participating in this forum, because this one is a very powerful conference. February 7th through the 9th, 2023, the conference will be held at the Palmer Event Center here in Austin. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Miller. I
Thank
thank all of
you.
our
Thank
participants
you.
who was a part of this conversation. And again, be careful, enjoy yourself, and hug somebody today.
That's right.
All right. Okay. See you next month, 1:30 on the third